what a lot of companies will do is they will adopt what's called a reactor strategy. They'll let somebody else pioneer because they think it's too risky. And the theory here is, well, we'll just let somebody else pioneer. We'll figure out what works, and then we'll reverse engineer, and we'll out-imitate, and we'll take over the lead. Nice theory. It only works when you have what's called a friendly learning environment. Friendly learning environment means you can actually understand what the first mover did, you can actually build something similar, and you can actually build something better. In other words, the lessons of the first mover are available to you. But if you take something like search engines and you look at Microsoft, you will see that that's not a friendly learning environment at all. It's quite hostile. The lessons of the first mover are very difficult to understand, and even more difficult to reverse engineer, and even more difficult to out-imitate. And so you see Bing as a competitor to Google flailing. It's not the leader, it's a follower. So the ultimate challenge faced by companies like Yahoo and Microsoft and every other incumbent is, at what point do I adopt the pioneering posture? At what point do I actually take the lead in creating the new forms of value in my market? And there is certainly risk associated with that, but the risk of not doing so is ultimately even greater.
So would your final word of advice to business leaders be to take the risk?
All risk can be managed. The first step is to understand that there's risk in everything. And the way you can manage that risk is to hold a diversified portfolio of innovation. And the key part of that diversification is, of course, to leverage your heritage as a successful business and continue to do sustaining innovation to improve what's already there. But at the same time, to be looking for the next generation of relevance as an organization. To be looking for the next way of being relevant in a market and creating value in a market. So, can you see examples of that? We know that Nescafe was a great instant coffee business. It got disrupted by Starbucks because Starbucks introduced the notion of the coffee experience, which meant nobody wants to drink instant coffee anymore. So if you're Nescafe, you have a wonderful business made up of instant coffee, suddenly imploding on you.
Although full circle, Starbucks now sells instant coffee.
Well, of course. And the reason they sell instant coffee is because Nescafe ultimately responded to the threat of Starbucks by introducing the Nespresso machine, which allows us to have the coffee experience at home. And the Nespresso machine, of course, is instant coffee, but now bundled up into a different experience for a customer. And so that's now causing a problem for Starbucks. So Starbucks is now selling instant coffee. So the interesting lesson from Nescafe, however, Nestle, however, is that the germ of the idea for the Nespresso machine was created inside the parent. But it was not until they freed a team of managers up from the parent culture and set it apart from the parent culture that the Nespresso machine finally came to life and finally took the form that we know and recognize today as a really great innovation. So this is part of the whole conversation about how do I balance this sustaining innovation with reframing innovation. And very often in many organizations, it's very difficult to do the reframing from within the parent. So some people will have a spin-off, as Nestle ultimately did, but it's not really necessary. If you understand what's different about the sustaining and the reframing innovation cultures and governance models, and if you're prepared to live by them and let the two different teams be evaluated and resourced and judged separately, then they can coexist within the same parent.